Hey everybody, it's me, Sam Tom from the future. This intro is going to be on multiple videos, so if you think you've accidentally clicked the same one twice, you probably haven't. I guess maybe you have, but you might not. So if you are watching this, you're about to watch me talk about Resident Evil. But here's the problem. When I started recording, I thought I was going to talk about all 6 movies in one video. Turned out that would have been a 2-hour-long video. So at some point I decided I would break it up into 2 videos. Still would have been pretty long. So I got big brain and decided to do one video every day for a week leading up to my video about the new Resident Evil. So Resident Evil number 1, that video will go up on Sunday, and then there will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then on Saturday, my video for the new Resident Evil will pop up. So, deep breaths, deep breaths. At some point in the videos that you're going to see, I will mention everything being in one video. At some point, I'll talk about it being 2 videos. At some points, I'm going to be like, we'll be right back in a second with my thoughts on the next one. And then the video is going to be over because past me didn't know what he was talking about. So this is future me explaining to you the situation. So this intro is going to be in all 6 videos. Feel free to skip it if you click around. I'm not going to put cards in every video because cards are frustrating, but I will put the links to all the Resident Evils as they get published. I'm sorry, all my videos about the Resident Evil movies as they get published in the description, and I will have a playlist link at the end of each video so that as you get to the end of one, you can easily find the next one. Oh my goodness, I'm talking way too fast. By the way, this is the higher part of the shelf that I sit in front of. These are where all my DC things are. So, hope you enjoy listening to me rant about zombies for a long time. Thank you. Alright, we are on to Resident Evil Extinction. And right off top, I gotta say, the character who I kept calling Nikolai in my segment on part 2, his name is Carlos. So apologies for any confusion. I think what happened was that the character, one of his teammates, was named Nikolai, so he kept saying the name Nikolai, so my brain associated him with the name Nikolai, but his name is Carlos, and I feel stupid. But let's move on to see what I have to say about part 3. Some deja vu, because this movie starts off with some, I don't know if it's archival footage or if they reshot it, but some duplication of some scenes from the first movie. I noticed this time, didn't notice in the first one, I might have to go back and check, when she wakes up in the shower, her hair is not wet at all, which, the way she's laying, the water is falling down over here and her head's over here, so I guess it's really just a question of how long has she been unconscious at that point. But then when she gets up, the hair is just like perfectly styled. It's not like a mess or anything, so doesn't affect the story at all. It's just a little thing that I noticed. I'm like, her hair should either be wet or all messed up, but it's fine. Alright. So this whole beginning section where she's going from this major part of the first movie to this major part of the first movie to this major part of the first movie, I put that it felt like a video game. And it's the first time for me watching these movies that it felt like a video game, because it felt like we were just going through the levels, like the big boss battles. So I was a little nervous about it, but luckily it didn't last very long, and then we moved on. But in the moment I was like, is this what this movie is going to be? But it wasn't. Okay, then when we see the first shot of the exterior with all the zombies rushing at the gate, a bunch of them have their arms outstretched towards the gate. And I remember reading in the trivia, I can't remember if it was the first one or the second one, but I remember reading that they hired dancers, in the first 2 movies at least, to be the zombies. And they had rules, and one of the rules was no outstretched arms. So in the first 2 movies, none of the zombies have outstretched arms. And apparently that rule has gone away, because now all these zombies have outstretched arms. And then I wrote, oh look, a pandemic! Because it talks about how the virus is spread around the world. And I feel like back in the day you had to explain how that happened, and that's just a thing now that for the next 10, 20, maybe even 30 years, filmmakers aren't going to have to explain that, right? They're just going to be like, there was a virus and it spread, because people are horrible at keeping viruses contained. But then I wrote, how did the virus dry up lakes and forests? Or lakes and rivers? So it says that it doesn't affect just humans. It says rivers and lakes have been dried up and that forests have, like, turned to ash or something like that. And I get the forests because they're living creatures, right? So they can be affected by the virus. But how does the virus dry up all the water? Don't understand that. I get it. They wanted to have this cool, oddly, apocalypse style movie, even though the second one was called Apocalypse. And it looks cool, so I kind of am okay with the hand waviness of it, but I don't quite understand it. Kind of wish, since they're giving us this exposition dump anyway, one more sentence about how it dries up water supplies and how that affects, you know, because then we get stuff with the crows later on. So, like, I feel like that could have been a bigger point throughout the movie. But I don't understand how that happened. But I don't think it really matters. There's no point in the movie where, like, they need water and they can't find water. So maybe they should have just left that out then. I don't know. They should have either told me more or not told me that part. It's not important and it's confusing, so it just feels weird and out of place. Okay, so at the beginning, we saw these clones having to solve puzzles, going through the levels from the first movie. And then the first thing that we see the real Alice do at this TV station is solve this puzzle of now she's been thrown into a hole and she has to get out. And so I kind of had the thought in my head, I was like, is this just a clone that escaped? And no, it's not. It's the real one. But it was interesting to me that I'm like, we're seeing how good the clones can do puzzles, and this one can do a puzzle really well. Is it because she's the original, or is she just a really good clone? The movie seems to say that she's the original. Maybe I'll find something different in a future movie. Then I wrote Carlos, not Nikolai. Okay. Okay, so this movie, we are following 3 groups. So I talked about it in the segment on the first one. We were following one group, and that was really great. And my segment on the second one, we were following way too many different groups, and it was way too much. This one, we're following 3, which is a nice balance. We're following Alice on her own. We're following the Claire convoy. And we're following the Umbrella group. And there are some subgroups within the Umbrella group, but we don't really care about most of them. We mainly care about the main doctor. So I think this was much simpler than Apocalypse, and a better expansion from the first Resident Evil, following a few groups of people, but not way too many. So I appreciated that. And then, obviously, Alice joined the convoy, so then we're only following 2 groups. So it simplifies over time, which I guess Apocalypse did too. It's just that it started so complicated, it was hard for me to know the backstories of all the characters towards the end, because I couldn't remember who was who. Alright, then I wrote, the birds, but zombies! And then it said in the trivia that this was inspired by the birds, which I guess, obviously, but, yeah, that scene made me want to watch the birds again. New group of friends to watch die one by one. So this is a thing that I've talked about with other movies like The Purge, where throughout the series, there might be some returning characters, but it's mostly new people. And I like that, especially in, you know, a horror, thriller, suspense, something where a lot of people are going to die. Because even though I have a couple people that I'm like, pretty sure you're going to survive, because I know that you are in another movie. But for most of the characters, I'm like, I don't know if they're going to die or not. Especially me having no knowledge of the video games. I don't know who are video game characters. So I always look up the IMDb trivia after I watch any movie, which sometimes ruins things for future movies in the series. So I know that Claire is from the video games. So I assume she's going to be around for a while. But there are multiple characters in this that I felt, because I had seen that they were in more movies, I felt were going to survive and didn't. And so either I misremembered which movies they were in, which I don't try to memorize everything solely so that I can be surprised. Or, you know, they might be in a future movie as a flashback or as a clone or as archival footage or something like that. So I don't feel like I'm spoiling it too much for myself. But I like that there's always a new group of people that we can get to know and then watch them die one at a time. I think it's a great experience. Okay. And I just put Kmart, lol. So one of the characters is called Kmart. And man, who would have thought that naming a character after a multi-million-dollar company would date it in 15 years. But R.I.P. Kmart. Are they still around? There's no Kmarts around me anymore. At one point, I just wrote down, love the look, because the look of this movie is awesome. The desert, the trench coat. I love Alice's look. I love I don't know what you call those. I know they have a name. Those kind of boomerangy swords, the bendy swords. But I really dug the look. I didn't dislike the looks in the first two movies, but this one really stuck out to me as like, yeah. And it reminded me of other movies, even ones I haven't seen. So like, I haven't seen any of the Mad Max movies, but it kind of reminded me of that and that apocalypse type thing. And even derivatives of that, like the Lego Movie 2, where they're in Apocalypseburg. And so I understand, you know, that's a thing. And so that, you know, it kind of generates that kind of setting in my head. So I really, really dug the look, both of the character Alice and the world at large. I think I'm going to move on from that thought. Okay, so this is my next thing. There's a story missing. So what I really liked about 2, even though there were a lot of things that I didn't like about 2, what I did like about 2 is that it picked up right after the ending of 1. So the ending of 1 sets up this new story, and then when we get to 2, we see that again, and we're picking up right away. And then the ending of 2 sets up another story, where they break her out. And then this one jumps ahead 5 years. And they keep referencing Detroit and these things that happened in Detroit. And we don't see that story. And in general, I don't think that's a problem, right? Time jumps are fine. It's just because the first 2 movies were one right after the other, I was expecting that again. And I was ready and prepared and wanting to see what was going to happen to them after they left Raccoon City. And instead, we've jumped forward 5 years to where we are now, and I don't dislike this story. I just feel like there's a missing story there. And I know this series is now done and they're rebooting it, but man, I would like a Resident Evil 2.5 to tell me what happened in the time between there. Not even because I desperately want to know what happened in Detroit, right? It's not a Budapest situation, but just because I like a linear story, and I like the idea, you know, I don't know, are there any movie series where there are multiple movies in a series and everything happens one after the other, you know, almost like a 24, but instead of a television show, a movie series, and not necessarily in real time, but just like sequential events happening one after the other, after the other, after the other, and we just see this one story, mostly from this one character's perspective. That's very interesting to me. And I can't think of any major examples of that don't either jump around through time or have a bunch of focus split on a bunch of different characters. So I guess I had a hope for this franchise, and it just didn't check that box. And it doesn't make it bad. It's just a little thing that I was hoping to see that I didn't get to see. Okay. So there's another actor in this that I'm like, I've seen it from something, but this time I was able to figure it out before I had to look it up. He played one of the directors of S.H.I.E.L.D. in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who also, I think, went by the name Patriot. The actor's name is Jason O'Mara. And then, when I was looking up his page to confirm, it said he voices Batman in a lot of the post-Kevin Conroy animated Batman cartoons, which checked out in my brain. But then, I realized we've got a guy that plays the voice of Batman, and a guy that plays Bruce Wayne, and I haven't seen every Batman cartoon, but for the most part, Jason O'Mara does the voice of Batman, and not really Bruce Wayne. And in Titans, the guy whose actor's name I didn't write down, plays Bruce Wayne, but not Batman. So it's like we've got 2 actors, one that plays Batman and one that plays Bruce Wayne, in the same scene, like, arguing with each other. I'm like, as a nerd, as a superhero nerd, I'm like, that's really cool to see. Oh, has nothing to do with the movie, but it was just kind of neat. Okay. Oh, this is very funny, because I'm a very funny person. I just wrote, LL not cool, Jay. Because, LJ, what are you doing? You've been bitten, you don't tell anyone, you stay with the convoy, you know you're a danger to them, why are you staying with them? And then, of course, he turns and tries to bite someone later, and it's just like, LJ, more like, LL not cool, Jay. It's a very funny joke, because I'm a very funny person. Oh my goodness. Okay, alright, here's another thing that just bothers me in movies in general. When firearms are out of ammunition, they don't click. And for a long time, that's been the way that movies show you that guns are out, is that they click. But they don't do that in real life. And I've found in more modern movies, so a lot of movies seem to be getting better at this, and they'll just have the slide stay back and the barrel exposed, right? And that's how they visually signal to you that the firearm is empty. Now, I don't know how accurate that is either. I don't have a ton of experience with firearms, just a little bit. But I'm like, well, at least it's not clicking, right? Because I was bothered by the fact that guns would always click in movies because I knew that didn't happen. So now that I'm ignorant of whether or not this is accurate, it's better than knowing that it's wrong. And so at one point in this movie, because the first two movies have a lot of gun clicks and they're empty. At one point in this movie, there's a gun and the slide just stays stuck back. And I was like, ooh, they fixed that thing. They're going to start doing this better now. But then as the slide is pulled back, he keeps trying to shoot it and it just keeps clicking. And I'm like, I thought they fixed it. They almost fixed it, but they still did the old one. Again, not a big deal. Just, I write down almost everything that I can think of. Alright, then I wrote down, it took a global apocalypse for the mega corporation to be a bit concerned. So, again, first two movies, Umbrella Corporation, obviously they don't care about people and they're getting away with everything. And now, they're still not held accountable, but the guy, I think from Tokyo, the Tokyo facility, he's very concerned, and they're like running out of supplies, and they're, you know, worried that they're not going to survive that much longer. And it's like, all it took for the corporation to be concerned was a global apocalypse. And that's all I got to say about that. Kiss out of nowhere. So when Carlos, not Nikolai, is getting ready to sacrifice himself so that they can get into this facility, Alice just kisses him, and I didn't feel any romantic tension between them in this movie or in the previous movie. So I wrote down kiss from nowhere, or kiss out of nowhere, Detroit, question mark? Because I'm like, again, I feel like there's a story missing, so maybe they had a connection. And maybe it's from a video game, right? Maybe there's a video game that takes place at that point, and that's the story that I'm missing, and I'm an idiot for watching these movies without playing the games, and I should shut up about it, right? So maybe that's the missing piece. But as a movie series, it felt very strange, and it's like, why did they feel the need to add in a romantic plot to these movies? They haven't had that, except for the fake husband and wife thing in the first one, and then it kind of seems like she's getting attached to Matt, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a romance in the first one. It's just like we both are the only ones that survived this whole thing. And so then when he returns as Nemesis in the second one, she doesn't want to kill him because she's, you know, grown attached to him. But I didn't read it as romantic. I just read it as, a bond that they had. So, wasn't expecting a kiss. Again, I don't think it ruins anything. It's just out of place. A little strange. Weird way to break into the gate. Why not draw them away? So, he plows his truck right into all these zombies. It flips. I don't know if it was supposed to flip. And then he blows it up. So there's this big explosion that kills a bunch of zombies. But they say that zombies will follow if they find out that there's a person around. So I thought that he was going to more slowly drive by and start leading them all away. And maybe then blow up a bunch of them, but like get them all away from the gate so that then these people could go in. He doesn't do that. And then, considering there are hundreds of zombies around this gate constantly, and the gate has held, I thought it was some kind of super gate, but they crashed the truck through it, no problem. So I'm like, how is this gate that is held up to constant zombie pressure over years just easily snap with the truck? I understand trucks are more powerful than people, but hundreds of people pushing together, I feel like, is not significantly weaker than one truck. And then, after they did get through, and they load up in their helicopter, and Alice stays there, and she's kind of looking around, and she's going towards the house, I'm expecting the zombies to flood her, because there are still zombies right outside the gate, but they just don't come in. I rewound it and rewatched that part to see if you can see them coming in, and you can see them kind of moving around the gate still, but you don't clearly see them coming in. So it's just that whole element of how they get in. I don't not believe that it could have worked. It just comes across weirdly on screen, and I think if you didn't want her to get swarmed with zombies, then it would have made more sense to lead the zombies away so that there's an explanation for why they're not coming in and swarming her. And then they can, use their brains to, pick a lock on the gate or figure out a way to open it and not just plow it down with the truck, because then that's weird that the zombies couldn't knock it down. So, wasn't a big fan of that. Doesn't ruin it. It's just, it was very weird to me, and I thought it wasn't that hard to think of what I think would be a better, smarter solution. But that's fine. I just wrote zombies taking their time because they weren't coming in. Secret hidden elevator, super easy to find. So she walks into this house, and there's this secret elevator that we've seen before in the movie, and she just steps on it, and it opens up, and I'm like, excuse me, this is supposed to be like your hidden entrance, right? In the first movie, it's the mirror in the mansion, right? And in this movie, you've got zombies outside. Now, you've got a fence up, but apparently that fence is weak enough to be knocked down by a truck. So there's no guarantee that zombies aren't getting through that. And the way they open the elevator into your super secret base is just by walking on the floor. Now, I understand that it's under the table, so it wouldn't be the first place that somebody might walk. But zombies, they're going to be walking and crawling everywhere and under everything and over everything. I just felt really, really dumb that the way to open this secret elevator was just to step on it. And you get, not even one specific spot, just anywhere in the general area of the elevator, and it opens it up. Again, we've seen that Alice is good at solving puzzles. So make that a puzzle. Could have made getting through the gate a puzzle also, right? Maybe they would have had to use another vehicle or something like that and create a ramp and jump it, right? That would have been cool. Use these as character traits that you have established to solve problems, right? You got a character who's a problem solver. Have her solve problems. Don't have the problems just fix themselves automatically. So, ending was a bit weak for me. I'll just say that. Or at least this part leading up to the ending. Not the absolute ending. So, at one point, we've got Alice and one clone of Alice. Now, this is before the very end of the movie. And so, I don't even think I had seen them interact together yet. Obviously, Alice is there when she falls out of the tank, but then she kind of leaves her for a while and she doesn't wake up right away. And I had in my head, I'm like, is Alice going to keep cloning herself? And I wrote down, army of Alice's, ? As if Alice was going to take it upon herself to keep doing this. Then, of course, fast forward a few minutes to the end of the movie, and there's already a clone of Alice's, and she says something like, I'm coming for you, and I'm bringing a few of my friends. And I'm like, oh, are there already more Alice's? And then it, like, pulls back and reveals who knows however many Alice's. So, but now I'm concerned, right? Because I'm excited for that story that's set up at the end of 3. But I didn't get the story that was set up at the end of 2. So I don't know if 4 is going to be that story or if they're just going to skip ahead a bunch. I'm hoping we see that story. I want to see a bunch of Mila Jovoviches all over the screen killing everybody in sight. That sounds awesome. I hope that's what I get. Last thought I wrote down was totally thought Alice would die and the clone Alice would take over. So again, I had this thought at the beginning of the movie that, oh, is this main Alice that we're following, is she just a really good clone and maybe doesn't even know it? And so then when we get to the end, when she's fighting the creature person, and there's the other Alice there. I thought main Alice was gonna die, and that this clone would take over as the new Alice, and she would just be the main Alice moving forward. And I was like, is this gonna be like a thing that we never know when the original Alice actually ended, and which ones are clones and which ones are the originals, and is it just going to be played off in 4 as if it's the original, or is it going to be ambiguous? Or maybe we see that one of them dies, but we can't tell which one it is, and so we don't know which one survives into the next movie. And obviously that's not the way it went down. I guess if 4 is all about clones, there's a chance that we might get something like that throughout 4, that maybe the original one will die, and we may or may not even know that. That idea was really interesting to me. It's almost like The Prestige, where it's like he clones himself, but he has to kill the original. Pretty sure that's how it went. So the original is dead, and each clone just takes over as the new main one, and then clones himself and has to kill himself. Or does he kill the clones? I don't know. I gotta watch The Prestige again. Anyway, very interesting thought concept to me. So those are my thoughts on part 3. Hey, it's me, Sam Tom from the future again, recording an outro that's going to be on all these videos about Resident Evil. So if you think you've already seen this, you probably have. Apologies if that video ended strangely or abruptly, because again, I thought there would be more in the video, and there's not. This is it. So those were my thoughts on whichever Resident Evil movie I was talking about in that video. Feel free to tell me your thoughts, but that's all I have. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. And if you haven't watched the rest of my Resident Evil, I can't speak! Check out my other videos. Thank you, bye!